meeting to order. Karen, can you take a roll call for us,
You have
please?
somebody coming in.
Is it Justin?
Chair Langness,
Present.
Vice Chair Young,
Here.
Commissioner Keen,
Here.
Commissioner Batty, Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Brink, and Commissioner Black.
Here.
The next on the agenda is we'll do a pledge of allegiance. We ask all those able to stand and join us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approving the agenda is next. I would like to seek a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as stated.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the Planning Commission meeting minutes from May 8th. Is there any discussion or motion on that?
I have one comment. The vote on the Third Lake Estates, I believe, was 4-1. I think Susan voted against that, and I think the record shows it as 5-0, I believe. So you might want to just make that correction.
Thank you.
Other than that, I'd recommend approval with that change.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Noes? Is everyone an aye?
That was an aye.
It was an aye.
Thank you.
Abstain.
One abstain. Motion carries. Did you get that, Karen?
I did.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a CUP amendment application for the Minnesota LISU Church of Jesus at 21288 Harrow Avenue North. And so for this, we'll have staff give a report and recommendation. And then there was a neighborhood meeting held last night here at City Hall, so staff can also give a summary on that, and I can help with that as I was at the meeting and took some notes. We'll have a public hearing where anyone in the public can come up and speak and say their opinion, good, bad, or indifferent, and then we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and decision. Donovan, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I'd like to present the CUP amendment application for the Minnesota LISU Church of Jesus. It's located on Harrow Avenue, as Chair Langness said. Karen, can I get some video, please? And it's located on Harrow, just north of the Chestnut Creek development on that west side of the street. It's in the MXR1 zoning district currently, where a house of worship is a commercial use. Here's, I'll zero in here on your screen. Adjacent to it is single-family homes with more density across Harrow Avenue. The church is currently served by private well and public sewer. The proposed expansions, the proposed building expansion looks somewhat like this in a photo simulation. The actual site expansion, which they plan to do, would like to do this next summer, is a parking lot expansion with increased access and landscaping and stormwater facilities for the first time. The site currently does not have any stormwater facilities. The parking lot holds 38 vehicles with 2 handicap spaces, meeting that requirement. The zoning code requirement for a church of this size, which holds sanctuary holds 100 people, is one space per 3 people in the sanctuary. So 33 spaces are required. So they meet that zoning code requirement. Also included in the CUP amendment is a future addition identified here. It's approximately 1,700 square feet, single story, on the front of the building. The improvements include, improvement in pedestrian access to this door in the front of the building, as well as the main front door to the building on the south side. There are wetlands in the site. Wetland delineation, was approved last fall, and the stormwater retention basin and parking facilities retain that required setback from the wetland area, so no impacts there. And the city engineer, we did work with the applicant on the design of the parking lot so that it has adequate aisle space, as well as the counterclockwise flow that you see there. This is a replacement of a gravel driveway that's been there from this church that was built in the mid-'70s. And then also included in this plan is 2 light poles on the parking lot islands. Before you in paper form is the photometric plan that was submitted today. And it does comply with that no light spillover in excess of 0.4 foot candles, over a property line. Something that's, you'll see actually 2 photometric plans there, one on each side. And they differ with either the presence or absence of a fence on that northern property line. Last night at the neighborhood meeting, there was discussion around that fence. And actually, this church did receive in September of 2017 a fence permit. And let me pull that up. It shows my Adobe crashed on me. It shows a fence, current fence there of, it shows a plan for a fence. There's no fence currently there. What was permitted is a 5-foot fence except for the 4-foot tall threshold of maximum height within 30 feet of the front lot line. And so any fence would need to be at that 4-foot level. At the neighborhood meeting, there's discussion of installing a fence, which would require amending this permit to allow a 6-foot fence where it could be allowed, further back than 30 feet from the front lot line. So that's how the photometric plan shows the light illumination levels, with a fence or without a fence. The city engineer's review letter did address, didn't have any major concerns. In a quick conversation with the project engineers, that there were things that they could meet and things they've changed their plans in response to watershed district comments. So that does not appear to be any sort of unresolvable issues within the engineering domain. The original CUP was for the 32-foot square sign that's currently on the site, and no expansion of that sign is proposed. Similar to how the school, middle school, high school are a conditional use in this residential zone, the staff recommendation is to have, set levels for times for the lights to be turned off at night. Not be turned off by 10 p.m. or when no functions are being conducted at the church. And I had a short conversation with Pastor LeWu, who's the applicant here, regarding that, and I believe he has an update, because there is one existing light on the site.
Mm-hmm.
And also part of this, the city is requesting drainage utility easements in addition to right-of-way access to allow for a future expansion of Harrow Avenue. And the future building addition, does meet with all the setback requirements. And also at your desk is a landscaping plan that was submitted today, that does have a change from the one that's in the packet. Let me pull that one up for you. Again, my sorry. Do we have a paper? Do you have a paper copy over there? Is extra? Grab extras, thanks. And the change is decreased landscaping to replace the area with the privacy fence on the north boundary, which, compared to the previously submitted plan, simply has that, this is the one that's previously submitted, on your screen. So it does show some, perimeter overstory trees, some, perennial grasses, also overstory trees within this courtyard area, which I believe would make a nice enclosure for that front entrance area, as well as more shrubs and perennial grasses, as well as, edging the front walkway. So I do believe this meets the intent of the code. But also, currently there is some tree coverage on this south side, which does provide some sort of screening. The code does require the screening on the subject property, but it's the anticipation that in the coming years that those properties will be developed as public sewer and water is expected to come. And so staff condition of approval is that, in the future when the addition is being constructed, that trees be established prior to the issuance of the trees, adequate to screen the parking lot are established prior to the building permit issuance for that addition. So with that, and with the staff recommendation with conditions, I'd like to take any questions from the Planning Commission.
Member Keen?
On your planting diagram here, what is it looks like a pond or something to the west of the church. What is that? I'm just curious what that is. I didn't see it on any of the specs.
Sort of rectangular looking thing.
Yeah, it looked kind of like track and field behind the church.
I visited the site. I didn't
It's
go
not
back
on,
there.
it's not on that one. It's on the
Yeah,
one we
yeah.
got today.
I see what you mean. Maybe Pastor LeWu can inform us on what that is.
Okay.
Other questions? Mr. Black?
Yeah, I have a question for staff. Donovan, we had a survey submitted with the application, if you can pull that up.
Yeah.
It was dated back 1993.
Oh, it's part of the original CUP?
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, there we go. That's showing a new sanitary sewer service. And they abandoned the old one because it crossed the adjacent property. Was that done? Is there a new service in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Only question.
Other questions? Member Keen?
Well, I just had one of my notes when they were talking about the timers and the lighting and the neighbors, and it's all on there, so it was kind of mentioned, but are these lights, are they gonna be on timers or photoelectric cells where they come on at dark, or more so timers that they can adjust to if it's not being used for 2-3 days? at least turn one of them off and the one by the church stay on, or how are they gonna, what was the staff recommendation on the lights?
Well, unless unless it's security lighting, that it should be turned off by 10, or if there's no function going on.
Okay. And then, just one more thing, you mentioned the addition is gonna be this next summer.
No,
Is it
the
this
expansion
summer?
of the parking lot, the addition doesn't have a, I believe, there's no set time deadline for that one.
Okay.
And I encourage Pastor LeWu to include that in this so that, for one thing, that the stormwater pond could be sized correctly for both, for all impervious, both existing and future, as well as an understanding of what their build-out will be, and they could have one planning commission appearance, and then, if there's just some significant change, then, they would come back for a,
Well, that's why I was asking what you meant by this next summer. Is it this summer?
oh,
Or
no.
next summer?
I believe it's summer of 2020.
Okay.
Other questions?
Now I do have one more question. Donovan, are we approving a building addition tonight? And if we are, how come we don't have any elevations? I mean, we don't know what the building looks like, we don't know what the roof lines are, we don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, no, there was submitted basically a simulation. And there's a building footprint, so you have the outline, so that roughly you can see a roof line here, approximate height. And then the actual, kind of a floor plan.
Can you
including
go back to that
offices.
elevation again?
Yeah.
Kind of hard to see what I'm looking at there.
They're basically got a rectangle off the building. In other words, it looks like it's gonna be,
L-shaped.
that roof line across, will go all the way across the top?
It would be like an L-shaped building, from a straight rectangle, from an
Right.
existing rectangle.
And it's gonna be cedar siding, not brick, I mean, it would, I guess I'd like to see more details on that, but it's okay. Wouldn't we typically see complete elevations all the way around with a detail on materials and?
I mean,
That looks incomplete for review.
I understand that. I think due to the, undetermined future, time schedule for it. And of course, there would be a full building permit review at that time. There are no, building, there aren't design standards for the MXR1 zoning district, for one thing. And
No, and we see how it fits onto the site plan, and and we do have a general floor plan of the building. But I'd like to, it just seems to me that we should see more. But I also understand that they're not proposing to build, well, they don't know when they're gonna build. The first part of this is to put in the parking lot and the other landscaping improvements, and then build sometime in the future. Maybe if we move this ahead, we can ask for a quick review of the site plan, building plan before they build. Right? If the rest of the commission agrees with that,
Other questions of staff? Member Keen?
Since this was brought up, how is this roof gonna, is it tying into the other roof? Or is it coming down into the V? Or is it gonna be like one straight roof up, tie into the old building? Or we don't know yet?
Pastor LeWu, maybe you should address, maybe with the microphone, please?
Sorry, I'm not engineer, not architect, but this is my idea, to extend 40 by 45, to have 2 office room and 2 meeting room. One is a Sunday school classroom, and then adding more restrooms. So this is 1 floor only, but the roof is attached to the old one.
Okay.
Okay, that's what we think. Because this building is built mainly for worshiping only. No rooms for class, Sunday school class and other meeting rooms and Sunday. So we need those rooms. That's why we need to expand the building.
Other questions on the staff report? Aaron, did you want to give a summary of the neighborhood meeting, or did you want me to do that?
You can chip it or chime in when you want, because I forgot to print out my sheet that I wrote up, but, essentially, there was 5 people at the meeting, 5 attendees, and then myself, and, there weren't really any, well, for starters, the engineer for the church kind of went through an overview. A lot of the stuff he mentioned was in the staff report. And then there wasn't really any concerns from the church. But then there was a neighbor. The neighbor, he's directly north of the property. I can't pick the address. But he just had a concern essentially over the fence, which the church agreed to put up a fence along the property line. And then, I don't know, do you have stuff to add in?
Yeah, I can chime in a little bit. There was also one other member of the church that was there as well. I don't think he spoke the whole time, other than saying hi. The one neighbor just to the north, it's the northeast little cutout on our diagram. He was most concerned about headlights coming in and then pointing at his house. And he had preferred a fence over the shrubbery that would, at some point or relatively early on, block that. And the church seemed very amicable to that. It seemed like a no-brainer solution on both ends. Between the staff intern and myself, we didn't know all the details on heights of fences and those requirements, and so Donovan worked that stuff out today. So that was the primary concern. There was certainly other questions, but they were more of what was already provided in the report, and it didn't seem that there was other concerns brought forward. So, was there questions on the neighborhood meeting?
Was there any discussion at all about the intersection of Harwell Avenue and 97?
It was never mentioned in the meeting.
Mentioned, okay.
I think it's an ongoing concern with everybody in their region, though. It's just well known. All right. Pastor Wu, did you want to present anything or say anything to the commission? We generally let the applicant go next.
Not directly connected to these issues. We have a big concern about the city water coming to Harrow Avenue, because all those buildings are using only tube well. So I think in future, when church grows, our buildings must be extended, and then we need to have a water sprinkler. That is important for us. So that will be easier only when we get city water running along the Harrow Avenue. That's the only one thing we have concern. And the neighbors are very good. All the neighbors are very good because we have a lot of kids. When on Sunday when you come, you hear the kids, shouting, playing. So those amuse our neighbors. They said, we are very happy about that.
Next is the public hearing, so we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this issue? No? If you do we just ask you to come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record?
So my name is Wes Peterson. I'm at the corner of 213th and Harrow, so that's 21299. So I'm directly across from the property, and I apologize, I had a conflict last night, so I couldn't make the neighborhood meeting. So I was wondering if you could maybe just elaborate a little more on some of the neighborhood discussion, and if that doesn't drag things down too much. I guess my only concern would be the lighting. There's a light across the street right now, and that, I don't know if it's on a timer. It's usually on by the time I fall asleep, but, so the lighting seems to have been talked about here, but I don't know if there's really a resolution contingent on approval as far as timers and timing and what have you.
Sir, is that a security light that's on there?
I don't know. It's on the church property, either across or on the east side, but if it's city or county owned or who,
For instance, I own Excel, and I own a yard light, a security yard light that's on all
Okay.
night. Comes on at dusk and goes off at dawn.
sure,
Is it that kind of a light?
it appears to be.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's basically a
It
security light?
was mentioned earlier
Yeah.
that there is a light,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that's to be replaced by the two lights on the ends of the parking lot or
Okay.
what.
The comments on the lighting was in reference more to how bright will it be and at what hours. And we did get the photometric. That was one of the pieces of discussion. Would it leak over to the neighbors? And I did note in the meeting that on the staff recommendation, it's item number 4. It says all external lighting except security lighting shall be turned off by 10 p.m. or when no functions are being conducted at the church. And it was stated that there would be some kind of sensors and pieces in there. The rest of the discussion in the meeting was more about the neighbors saying that the children of the church were great to work with, and
Yeah,
he said his dogs were good dogs next door, but the kids make the dogs bark, and he was afraid that the kids would run in there, and that's why he wanted a fence. Most of it was very friendly or just specific questions about like what is this feature of the design, or where do I see this?
Because I think certainly most residents are excited for site improvement because it has been run down for quite some time. And so it seems like the previous occupants didn't take quite as good a care as they are now and propose to improve the lot. So like, runoff and lighting and all that could only be better than it is now, so.
As far as neighborhood meetings go, it's probably one of the most positive I've ever been
Yeah.
at. The only concern ever mentioned in the meeting was really that idea of the fence, and it seemed amicable on both sides.
Yeah, no, that's all I wanted to know, is if the lighting was to be determined, then contingent on approval, or yes, no?
It is in the staff recommendation.
Okay, all right, well,
Commissioner Young, did you show him the photometric work?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
for sure. All right, thanks.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak at the public hearing? We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission then.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Black?
Perhaps a little more clarification, this lighting. I believe the light that's there now will be taken out.
Correct.
And that light is more like almost like a street light where you can see the light source. The new lights will have more of a box light where it'll shine down and you won't necessarily see the light source from a distance. Is that correct?
I mean, the photometric plan proposed is on your screen now, and you can see once it even reaches the property line, the edge even before the edge of the road. Well, actually, yeah, I'm sorry, the edge of the road. It's showing no illumination from these lights. So, I mean, you're correct. There's gonna be luminaires that are shielded, so the direct light to where it's needed, and not allow it to go where it's not wanted.
Okay.
All right.
Other discussion or a motion? Commissioner Young?
I appreciate that the church is putting up a stormwater structure and improving the parking lot. I think that will greatly improve the water quality in that area. I don't know if you've worked with the watershed district to prepare that. And I don't know if there are any grant funds or anything if you want to further improve. I think that's a neat opportunity for a rain garden or something as you develop your landscaping plans further. But I agree, the property does look much better recently.
Commissioner Black?
Yes, this perhaps for staff. On the parking layout, is there concrete curbing around the parking lot? And especially on that south end by the pond, is there curbing there, or is that a direct runoff? I'm looking at the grading plan, and the grades kind of look like it runs right off into that pond. Am I right, or am I wrong there?
Yeah, no, there's definitely, basically, given by the slope here, it's like they're
Right.
doing sheet flow, into that, and there's no,
There's no catch basins, no curbing, no nothing in there, it's just a sheet flow into that pond?
It's only 38 parking spaces.
yes, that appears to be so, yeah.
The architect in the meeting last night described it was designed that way so that they could just plow the snow into the stormwater pond.
Well, if the watershed accepts it, I guess I'll accept it, but I'm
Yeah.
surprised the watershed will accept that.
They have. There've been conversations. There's some incomplete items in their application I'm aware of. They've amended their application, resubmitted this Monday, and so that's incomplete. But of course, staff recommendation is contingent on that approval, of their plans through the watershed.
How about the islands in where the streetlights are gonna be, or the parking lot lights are gonna be? Are those curbed, or is that just a grass area without curbing?
I believe that's curved, as well as looks like there's I think on the landscaping plan shows aluminum edging on this top end, so that's meant to be kind of a defined edge.
One more question, there's the existing gravel that's out there. There is some gravel to the west of the existing house to the north, the exception we're talking about and where the fencing's gonna be. There's a little bit of gravel that goes to the west there. If you can, if you move right, how can I explain this? Right
I could jump into
behind the existing house.
Kind of in this area.
Yeah, right in that area. There seems to be even more gravel in there than what she's showing on that aerial there. But it definitely goes beyond where the proposed parking is gonna be. Is that gravel area gonna be removed and sodded then, or grass planted in there?
I mean, it appears that they are, maybe Pastor Lou can clarify, but I believe that that's, the site plan shows that, there will be a paved area and, it's either, everything else,
Will be
would.
removed.
Yeah, it needs to be removed or turfed
Okay.
or landscaped.
Other comments or a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the conditional use permit amendment for 21288 Harrow Avenue North with the 6 staff recommendations, including a 7th for the fencing on the north side of the property.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? I want to ask the maker of the motion, is the intent with adding the fence also include removal of the plantings and landscape that is on place of where the fence is proposed.
Yes, that would be correct.
Thank you. Any other comments? We'll have a vote then. All those in favor?
Wait a minute.
Commissioner Young?
Mr. Chair, I see the privacy fence on our new drawing tonight, but then I also see trees near that privacy fence, overstory trees. Did you mean for those trees to be removed from the plan?
No.
No, it's the coniferous Medora junipers. They're
On the
not on
original
this drawing, they're on the drawing
Okay.
in here, in the packet.
So the landscaping would be in compliance with the plan that we have before us this evening?
Correct.
Okay. Because I really don't want removal of all the landscaping near that fencing.
Additional conversation? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No? Abstain? Motion carries. Good luck on your project, Pastor Wu. This is a final decision at the planning commission level unless there was an appeal that went to council. So staff could certainly walk you through that if you had questions on it, but otherwise this is typically where it ends. Next on the agenda is the planned unit development and city zoning discussion. Donovan, do you want to walk us through this?
Sure. I'll bring up the, well, just as kind of a way to present this is, expand the, the two-page staff report, but, in response to Plan Commission's discussion, Plan Commission desire to talk about the plan unit development requirements, current provisions in the zoning code. I thought, the first part would be look at what is currently there. And then, I threw in some ideas of what, and Aaron also helped with the research on this one. What is the, what are the things that we could begin to explore, and also seek more guidance from council, from commission, on where you'd like to do some more research. So I consider this just kind of an initial broach of the topic. But the basic purpose of the plan unit development provisions is to permit a more creative and flexible regulatory process in guiding land development. And it's compared to the standard development regulations of this chapter. And it's meant to, foster kind of a joint planning effort between the city and applicant, and but still maintain and promote the health, safety, order, convenience, prosperity, and general welfare of the city and its inhabitants. But right now there are requirements to have a certain amount of acreage, 7.5 acres for residential PUDs, and then have a minimum of 2 principal structures or a minimum of 2 principal uses. For instance, over at the Sherwood Point, that came in as a PUD simply because of the stylus on the first floor, which established a second principal use to the senior retirement center. But the parcel smaller than 7.5 acres, residential redevelopment, may be rezoned as a PUD if the unique features of the property, if it's adjacent or across the street from a property that's been developed under the, as a PUD, and that the development of PUD will provide the city with significant on-site or off-site amenities or benefits. And that also for commercial, multiple family, and industrial sites, if you have 2 or more principal buildings, it must be processed as a PUD. And the also is a requirement that the open space, they have required open space with, I assume, with the residential PUDs, And also, there's no PUDs in conservancy, rural residential, or agricultural districts. Also, the Shoreland Overlay District restricts PUDs as well, as far as, there's no, can be no increase in density in the shoreline area from a PUD. But meanwhile, in other areas, there can be increased density, as long as there's no adverse impact on existing public facilities and the reasonable enjoyment of neighboring property owners of their properties. And you may have noticed some places where there's clusters, and so I think only 3 or 4 within the city, where there is a clustering rural PUD provision. For instance, down on 184th Street, that development came in under that, this rural PUD provision. So that's kind of the basic framework in which we look at PUDs within the zoning code. And then we kind of, if we move into what are potential discussion topics, there are ways that, with this creative negotiation, creative discussion, exploration of design between the city and applicant can yield many benefits, including recreational opportunities, educational opportunities, economic. They can involve, safer transportation access, involve housing opportunities, or just, in some settings, save certain, unique environmental features of a site. And then also there can be public benefits gained. This is kind of some of the discussion we had at the last Plan Commission meeting, where, if the city is allowing this flexibility, what is the city gaining? And so there's a list here that can relate to, gardens or outdoor open space, playgrounds, pedestrian improvements or plazas, public art, undergrounding of parking, a dedication, maybe it's a, new bike path maybe through the property, and then enhanced landscaping or allow more adaptive reuse, maybe within a historic structure. So I just want to throw those out there as to get a discussion going, but I would like to open up the floor to what the Plan Commission sees, and this is kind of also within the framework of the comprehensive rezoning that we'll be engaged with in the late fall leading into in 2020. So I'd like to take any questions or just begin a discussion.
Did you want us to all fire off wherever we want to start on here, or did you want to take it certain section by section, Donovan?
I don't have any clear, I think it's an open format, so
All right.
however you want to do it.
Commissioner Young?
Donovan, I noticed that you left out of your preamble here, 153.341B1, which is the applicants may be excused from the certain requirements. And it goes on to say, the elimination of requirements shall only be allowed for the purposes of creating better overall design and an improved living environment, and not solely for the economic advantage of the applicant. Is it your intention, when we recodify the zoning, to retain that section? Or, as I see here, that will be removed?
I'm actually open to what the Planning Commission sees, what City Council sees. I don't have a strong desire as far as, intention on, exactly what the form it takes. However, one thing, in this decision, this conversation arose out of the Third Lake Estates review, to actually, clarify, what are benefits, and make this so it's clear for staff when they, for interpretation, for application. But I would say it's not my intention to, to eliminate that. So that was an unintentional omission on my part.
Yeah, I think you'd find that language in any ordinance with any city, and there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. You can get a PUD ordinance from a number of suburbs around the metro area that would, and they would all have, I would think, that same language in there, that.
Some do, some don't. And so, we do have that currently,
That's right.
and it is my hope that it is retained.
Sure, sure. And I think it should be retained because, you know, it's, the PUD process is really, it is a two-way street. You know, hopefully the city is encouraging creative design and some above-standard amenities, but the applicant is getting, they wouldn't come in for a PUD unless they were getting something.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so that there is some incentive there, and I think it's really, the front line is with the staff. The staff has to really work with the applicant initially up front to say, well, what is it you want, and what is the city going to get in return? And then our job is to follow up and also ask that same question, so I'm agreeing with you. I think the language ought to stay. The 7.5 acres is contiguous land excluding wetlands. Yeah.
Yes.
I was a little surprised that you just didn't copy the few pages. Maybe we all have a zoning code. I carry mine around all the time, but I'm surprised you summarized, in your opinion, the main parts of the PUD standards and requirements. And I think we could have just probably just copied the 3 or 4 pages of the code and hand them out, and then we could review those and go from there. I mean, that's what we've got, and the one question I was going to ask is, the Third Lake Estates, if I'm saying that right, the single-family development that we just approved, did that come through on a concept review, or did we go right to preliminary plat review?
No, there was a concept review.
There was a concept. And the apartment building up on, you know my street names, up towards Menards up there, was that a,
19th Street.
did we have a concept review on that?
No, that was a PUD amendment. It was originally, Gateway Green Second Edition.
Oh,
PUD.
yes, oh, yes, yeah,
So, that was different.
oh, yeah, okay. Well, I think that concept review plan is a good step for the planning commission, because that's a step that we can ask those questions up front. We can kind of voice our concerns, or not concerns, our, Mr. Developer, what are you getting, what are you asking for, and in return, what could we ask back and get in return? And I think that the more you can form that at the concept level and put things on the table so both sides know where we're coming from, I think that's a good start, and that's an important step there. So that we don't get the preliminary plat and all the engineering and all the design and the preliminary elevations and everything is all laid out and done and all the money's spent, and then all of a sudden we're asking for something different. That, it's best to, not that we can't ask for something more at preliminary plat review, but it's best to kind of lay our cards on the table early on so everybody knows what both sides are coming from. And again, it starts with the staff when you have those initial meetings.
Certainly, and in this, specifically within the PUD, there is the concept plan review, and also, that recently the rules were changed as far as what regarding the preliminary plat doesn't have the preeminent position in review as it once did. Because now, with city's design of the public infrastructure, the applicant is bringing in much less at that preliminary platting stage. They're bringing grading, they're bringing their lot lines, the wetland delineation, all those sorts of things, the kind of the main shape, maybe a main shape, but they haven't done an underground work during that preliminary plat review phase, so that if Plan Commission does see things they want to, things they didn't catch during the concept plan review, there is more room to to, have those changes made before, we get to the real heavy investment in the site with that engineering design.
Commissioner Young?
PUD is really designed, let's get some better design processes. Let's see some imagination, let's see some enhancements. And not just how can I squeeze more density, how can I narrow the roads, how can I get those things? So I think that from a staff perspective, when someone comes in for a PUD, I would expect that you were looking for some unique and innovative and special design work that would be worthy of a PUD. That enhanced design would provide some benefits, but then there might also be some additional amenities for the city. I think that's, as the preamble talks about, that we're looking for something that will enhance livability, that will enhance design, that will enhance the environment, and will enhance the city. So that the PUD is more of an above and beyond than a skimming.
There was one, I researched the amenities piece a little bit and what is an amenity and kind of went down that road. And I don't oftentimes think the city does things right, but I think they did something well here. The city of Minneapolis has on their PUD structure a point system, and they give a certain value of points to different types of amenities for a project that comes forward, and if you meet the point threshold. And I think that gives a structure where we kind of put our cards up front. They have and the parts where I disagree with Minneapolis is with a lot of the amenities they put value and where they put their values, and I think that's expected. And some of the things on here was like historic preservation, and I don't see anywhere in our PUD process where we value historic preservation, but I suspect we as a commission or the council can say, here's where we value that. And if you save some piece of history while you're building your PUD, we're gonna put a value on that. They have a lot of
Bike trail.
green project design and that stuff
LEED stuff.
that they go through, LEED, green roofs. But another one on there was like a parking ramp versus flat parking. I think there's a good value to that, particularly closer to downtown. I'm just scrolling through it here. Outdoor open space, they had play area, plaza, various art features, energy efficiencies. I think it's a good format to kind of go with, that maybe tells developers up front, here's what we're looking for. I don't necessarily think it has to be locked in. And maybe there's, historic preservation, might be something really small on one and might be something really significant on the next project. And so I don't necessarily think it has to have the same point value, but if it's used as a guide for developers, I think and then if we followed it, I think it might be I don't know, what do you think, Donovan? Is that
Well, I kind of like that, I call it the Chinese menu approach. You provide different opportunities and different options, and then, basically you set some threshold for how those options need to show up. I mean, the design, minimum design standards are built that way, more glass around a front entryway, more vertical design, architectural design elements, horizontal design, contrasting but complementary colors. I mean, you can pick these, pick three, for instance. And I think too that does work well to kind of, refashion that to what the city of Forest Lake values. I don't mean to repeat you, but I think that's a great idea.
I also think that, if they're looking for some minimal give from the city, that I'm not expecting the world wrapped up in a golden bow in return. On the other hand, if someone is looking for very significant deviations from our standard requirements, then I would certainly expect some bells, whistles, and perhaps a silver bow in return.
And I'm not sure how we put it in the PUD process, but I think if we could put value to anything that development is going to negatively affect for that neighborhood or area, that those pieces are incorporated as a requirement versus qualified as an amenity. And so when I look at the Third Lake Estates neighborhood that we passed, I think one of the amenities we should have had or required would have been improving the road structure to that development, because that development will negatively impact that region. And I think that would have been a pathway where we could have achieved that goal via an amenity if we have our PUD structure well written from the beginning, whereas clearly not every development needs a road to it. And I don't necessarily see the road as a pure amenity to meet an amenity requirement, whereas another development's gonna have to do something significant when that property already contributed to the nearby infrastructure.
Donovan, if I remember from the court case, the city cannot require a developer to kick in dollars, for instance, for future traffic signals and turn lanes and things like that. But the city may suggest it and may accept such contribution as part of a PUD process. Am I remembering that lawsuit correctly?
I have not done a full reading of that one. I think what you're saying is true, and where I stumble is the exact, the application of that. And because, we had one city attorney say, if it's a contract, anything can go in a contract.
Right.
That's because there's mutual consent with this. If someone doesn't want the contract, they don't sign it, and it's doesn't.
Everybody walks away?
It's not in effect, yeah. But I also think there's kind of a shift in city thinking that what we declared, kind of in that Third Lake Estates situation is too strict a reading of that. And that's, I think, moving forward, we're gonna study that a bit more, so that we don't kind of handicap or the city's ability to basically have development pay for the adverse impacts it might generate.
And if they don't meet those or aren't willing to do that stuff and sign the contract, then we don't give them a PUD. We're not forced to give them a PUD, right?
Yeah, I mean, basic PUD is a zoning, zoning map change. And there's a, large amount of discretion. It's kind of a legislative act. It's quite a bit of discretion that local governments have on how they zone their property, within the boundaries.
Because underlining wherever the property is, there is a zone, and they do have regulations, and they could come in with a development to meet the underlying regulations. We don't have to approve a PUD.
Correct.
On the, I think it is appropriate in some cases to require development to pay their fair share of road improvements or maybe a traffic signal, if you're able to show that without that development or because of that development, the impact is there. You have to be very careful there. Impact fees beyond public use dedication are not allowed by state statute. And both the city of Eagan and the city of Woodbury have been sued over that, over road impact fees that they've charged to building permits and to development. We do have to be careful there, but in the case of a PUD, if it is clear that the impact of the use is going to generate an amount of traffic, trips per day, peak hour movement, that are going to impact safety and concerns of the community, we sure are able to put requirements on them for that. So it's a case-by-case thing that we've got to go through. I think in my short tenure here, we've seen 2 PUDs, and in both cases, I think we could have maybe put a little more pressure on the developers to do a little more than they did. And in the case of the last one, Third Lake, it states, that person may have lost one lot if they would have had to meet minimum standards. I'm not even sure how we relaxed the standards to allow them to get the number of lots they had. I'm not. I know we went to a 50-foot right-of-way as opposed to a 60-foot right-of-way. Maybe that was the main change. And on that case, where you have a residential subdivision of 10, 15 lots, I'm not sure the 60-foot right-of-way is even necessary. Maybe our zoning code or subdivision regulations ought to address that and allow for a 50-foot right-of-way. 50-foot right-of-ways with a 10-foot utility easement on both sides is more than adequate to handle the public infrastructure need that you need for a short cul-de-sac like that. But I think it raised a concern for me too. It seemed like we let that person come through and get a subdivision approved under a PUD when we weren't really getting too much. They were saving some trees, but it seemed like a stretch of the code for a PUD. But then on the other side too, we're also encouraging some residential development in the city. We're not getting overwhelmed with building permit applications and development applications, so.
Have you looked south of 97 recently?
Well, yeah, Chestnut Creek, in fact, I drove through there today a little bit and saw, but, but I mean, I sense, since I've been on the commission, that there's been a spirit of cooperation to entertain development activity, and I think that's good feeling. I think we ought to do that, but I don't think at the same time we should give things away either and just let developers come in and do what they want to do and without us asking for things. So,
Donovan, under our tree ordinance, quite frankly, they would have had to save more trees if we had strictly applied the tree ordinance, wouldn't they?
It's actually contradictory, and I say that with acknowledgement that I wrote the current standards. There was council at the time wanted more flexibility because it states there's a minimum amount to be saved per zoning district, of significant woodlands. Then there's the kind of a 30-foot surrounding, 30-foot building pad allowance surrounding the house footprint, driveway, essential utility areas, so basically in the more expansive view of that, they did not, they comply with the woodland preservation regulations, but in the stricter view, they didn't preserve the 50%.
Right.
I guess something I need to fix.
We're going to redo the zoning code. You got a chance.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Did you get everything you're looking for, Donovan?
I guess so. I mean, I think for me, it's it's the beginning of a conversation. I'd like to look more. I mean, I admit that I didn't put the time into this that I would like to. It's been heavy workflow, but I think we have some good points here. And also, I mean, I appreciate Commissioner Young's pep talk. I take it as a pep talk that I can ask for more. And there was one PUD adoption that was a painful experience where we worked to get that creative public amenity, and then in the last minute, basically council wiped it away. So it's I need to be reminded that yes, we can ask for the things because indeed the city is granting flexibility.
Don't be shy.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to the next item. Other business? Did you have anything for us?
Well, I just want to say that part of the, projects I've been working on, what I've been doing my other day job, when I'm not reviewing these, is we've had some great conversations regarding future development with potential purchase of large tracts. And there's enough where I think we might see some movement with some of these properties. So stay tuned.
Interesting. Residential, commercial?
Residential.
Residential.
Donovan, do you anticipate a meeting on the fourth Wednesday of this month?
No. There is a meeting the fourth Wednesday this month, which is a strategic planning meeting for the city, which
Cool.
I know is for staff. I'm not sure if is it public too? It's for staff. So are you not?
There is a workshop, at the workshop, the strategic planning will be discussed.
Okay.
Their council workshop, but then I think the meeting on the 24th is for staff.
But we do have application for the first meeting in July. Was that the July? July 10th.
Okay.
And yeah, and there actually is a somewhat large commercial expansion that we'll see, I think. Sorry, correct myself there. That's it for me.
Councilmember Gerard, did you have anything for us tonight?
If you have, give me 1 minute.
Absolutely.
He's got notes.
Uh-oh.
Well, brain's not very good these days. Good evening. I wanted to discuss a little bit at the council meeting. We are going to move forward with presenting to the state, because it's a bonding year, 3 projects that we would like state bond money for. And one is for the pedestrian bridge over 97 where the fatality was at Goodview there. One would be to expand North Shore Trail to have a trail on it from pretty much Greenway out to Cooling Camp. And then after that, according to the city engineer, it gets pretty dicey trying to get any further down there. And the third one, and this is why I have notes, some funding for the sewer lift station project. As you know, we've had quite a project replacing sewer lift stations, and that one may be a joint funded by us and them. This is something new for the city. They have not gone to the state before with bonding, and they were chosen for a reason that similar types of projects tend to get bonding. And the reason I bring this up, the one that we didn't move forward on was infrastructure down at the headwaters. That was another one that we discussed. And it was not submitted because they have a low probability of getting state bonding for it. So just I wanted to make sure that everyone was clear that this was state bonding that we are moving forward on this. This is not what the city will bond for later. Susan?
Councilmember, did you discuss future well needs of the city toward the south? Because that will be, if, I'm guessing, Donovan, that some of those significant developments on large tracts of land may be toward the south where we may have some challenges at providing water supply, public water supply. Was that at all discussed?
It was not discussed as part of this. I know Ryan's had discussion regarding getting water down there, but it sounds like there's a lot of work still to do in that regard.
The way I understood it is the safety issues kind of take preference
Correct.
over a lot of other issues when it comes for bonding. The state really looks into safety, public safety, everyone's safety. So I think that's why the city decided to go that way, because it's every one of those projects is about safety.
Thanks for that.
But they also funded a couple of very significant water supply projects in the southwestern part of the state.
But we But the city, if they start getting 5, 6 applications in there, then the odds are gonna go down as far as what we really go for this year, and then there's always next year and the next year.
And I'll also add that improvement of the Harrow Avenue Highway 97 intersection was considered also as a bonding request.
Well, that was included in the list?
No, we went with 3.
Oh.
3 on the list, 2 were removed from the list.
And Harrow Avenue wasn't
and,
removed?
And the infrastructure for down by Headwaters, those were removed from the list. Again, it's our first time going to the state for bonding, so it's a new experience. It comes with, I guess, a whole bunch of other political stuff with it, so I'm not really up on that stuff.
The conversation with North Shore, that includes roadway improvements and associated what
Yeah.
issues, right?
It would work the road and the path together, which would require some repaving and similar type of work to be able to fit it all in there.
It's actually, yeah, I've been working, that's part of my work this week, was preparing this, a complete road reconstruction for 4.5 miles. I'm
Is
sorry,
that
2.5.
sewer and gas? Sewer, gas, all of it?
Those are private utilities, no, but just the road reconstruction to include, safety improvements for North Shore Trail as well as a 10-foot wide bituminous trail.
Right.
And it goes to, is it 233rd?
It'd be right along, from along North Shore Trail to 230th, and then down to Cooling Camp.
What is the intent with the city then? If we were to get that, are they gonna self-fund the rest of North Shore Trail that's just as bad? I'm concerned about Councilmember Gerard getting to his house. I heard that at the council meeting, that was a big deal.
That comment was strictly tied to trying to get water on the backside of the lake, and I don't think I'll see that in my lifetime, was the answer I got. And I'm okay with that answer. It's just really difficult in that regard. The reason it ends at Cooling Camp is it's a very valid project to get from where we are at Greenway, which already has a 10-foot wide, all the way out. So it's kind of the next step. And then we'll see where we go from there. And as Ryan, the city engineer, was explaining, going past Cooling Camp, there's an awful lot of wetland as you go down there. It gets pretty dicey trying to give that 10-foot path all the way down there. So at least at this point, they feel good that they can get all the way to Cooling Camp if it's funded.
And I'm not concerned about the path going further than that. I think the path going to Cooling Camp is about as far as you're gonna get, and that's the logical and most cost-efficient way to do it, and then follow the trail that's in the 2040 prelim comp plan. But the road reconstruction itself,
There was
can we?
no discussion on that.
I would urge council to, when they redo North Shore, to redo it from 97 all the way to 61. Redoing half of it and then leaving the other half the mess that it still is, because I don't know that one is actually worse than the other. But the roadway needs to just get significantly improved at the same time.
Anything else I can answer tonight, or not answer? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you
Karen?
for considering us for that update. I appreciate that.
I think that's my role, isn't it?
Well, yes, but I appreciate that you're doing it.
Oh. You're more than welcome.
I appreciate you're on the council. It's a lot of work.
Stay tuned.
I appreciate your summer wardrobe.
Karen, did you have any updates for us?
Sorry, what?
Nothing else.
Did you have any updates?
Aaron, you have anything?
I do not have any updates.
Aaron? No? Council members? Or council members, sorry. We went through that. Commissioners? None?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor? Aye? Aye. No? Abstain? Motion carries. We're adjourned. 8:15.
All right. Hockey game talk.
Oh, yes, it is, isn't it? Just Someone's gonna need to come tonight.
You gonna agree on how to pay
Nice
for
to
it?
meet you.
Welcome to the city.